Hello.
Yes. All right. Yeah. In watching the last recorded the 3 episodes, I was like
The
really
three-headed dog.
I got very self-conscious about my use of the word like. Like in some cases, like once it got like I just did it. Dang it. Once
I thought you may have done that on purpose.
No, it's so once I became aware of it, there would be like stretches of dialogue where I would say the word like almost like so many times that it became like it was just unnerving, where I was just like, spit it out, and I'm thinking that, if someone's watching, that if they heard that in the same way, that it would be difficult for them as well. So I thought,
you now just made a game of it now.
exactly, like,
So now that people see this, they're gonna go back and look for it everywhere.
do it.
It's a good way to get rewatches, though. You get people to go back in and like catch it.
Yeah, there should be a like counter,
or they'll just wait for the next one and see if you're doing it.
So I need to practice speaking better, where I would be moving my words slower, so I don't throw like out as like glue. And it's deeply ingrained into my speech, and I'm watching, like, I look like an idiot when I'm talking, and I feel like my friends are sort of like, well, they know me, so it's not abnormal for them. But when I became self-aware of it, I thought, wow, this is difficult to hear, like, this conversation when I'm saying it's being used as like a glue for, stalling time and connecting thoughts.
Right.
And it becomes like a difficult thing for me to be able to, digest. And it's like, I don't want to, I'm not going to release this one. I sound like an idiot. Like, I want to keep these as like a sort of, as an example of the progress.
This is where I was.
Yeah, exactly. By committing to it and facing the fact that it's not
This is Jarrett before Subway.
as professional as I would like it to be, I feel there's a potential there that I could actually grow by having that sort of example there that I've set, where I'm conscious of it now, so I'm trying to do better at it. But I may sound like I'm, half drugged or something because of like more broken speech, because I'm throwing like as my butter in between,
Well, no, I've been having thoughts recently about, and I'm sure there's some people that are like, no shit, man. You're just coming around on that. Just like, sometimes I think it's fine to let a silence go.
Yeah.
And then start talking. But the filler words.
I thought, like, they haven't jumped out at me. I know I do and uhs, but
the one that really,
I was like, dude,
that's
like
the sticker.
I was almost feeling that, like, I would use the word, I would call the episode like, making fun of that, but I'm almost like, maybe I'm just.
Well, I saw the one that's figurehead.
Yeah, I kind of had a hard time with like coming up with a name for the other ones, where with like Mike, I was like, I don't know what sometimes it seems like in these recordings there'll be some phrase or word that just sticks out, and it feels that's the one. Where the recording I had with Mike, we talked about like Mike, just like a lot of like recording and technical stuff, microphones, music, pedals, and it just seemed like there was a lot of conversations, a lot of topics, but I couldn't think of anything that was like clever or just like something. There was nothing I remember specifically, like a word where it was said a bunch or repeated enough times to be like, that should be the name. So I just named it like Mike's recording, pedals, and more. It's just something really
Mike's
like
pedal shop.
really straight. But yeah, so I'm coming to the table here with a list of like movies that I've watched recently. I've been watching YouTube movies on YouTube, there's a channel that's like YouTube Movies or something.
Sure.
I've subscribed to that.
YouTube seems like they're getting their hands on a lot of pies. I heard just the other day they got the Sunday NFL Ticket, which has always been a DirecTV. Like that's kind of DirecTV's bread and butter. So I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody made the joke like I guess they still have the airlines DirecTV.
Gosh, I mean, that's some big deal stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all the NFL. So yeah, YouTube apparently did that, and some people were like, I don't even know that YouTube's gonna make money off that. It's just like we just want eyeballs.
Didn't like Bezos or something recently acquire like a night of football?
Thursday night,
Thursday night.
That's the best way to put it. A night of football. So the funny thing about this, I guess this is for the people that would watch these games and specifically would have saw this, but I think it was the first one, or it was one of the first ones. He was in the box, like they have the suites, and it was him and Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the NFL, and they're doing that thing like it's like they have to know they're on TV currently. Like first of all, like I've been in those suites, they have. Now, sometimes it is like a slight delay. It's funny because you can see the live action and then you can see how what's on the TV is a couple seconds later from what just actually happened. But if you're in the suites, they have the TV. So my point is they know they're on TV, but they do that thing. They're sitting next to each other and they're like talking like, oh, you just said the funniest thing ever. You see a lot of that on like Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band are good for that, where you're like, there's no way they're having a conversation right now. But, like two of the guitar players are, somebody else is really jamming out and they're just kind of strumming along. And all of a sudden, they like talk to each other. And then like one of them laughs hysterically, like, Bruce just said the funniest thing ever. It's like, really, did he? Like, are you guys just playing that up? Like, what really just happened there?
Is this a real natural, interaction here? Is this sort of you're aware of the document?
I'm hamming this up for the cameras. So I definitely think Bezos and Goodell had that moment where like they're like sitting talking, like just chatting it up, like laughing, like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. And you're just like, yeah. But yes, to answer your question, he did buy a night of football.
it's like interesting to think about the investment and the with that like why and this and that. But with YouTube picking up on buying some stock, it seems like some sort of investment for the future. The way things are shaken down, where like networks and cable, the way we watch television is like we're experiencing like
there's a
tidal changes here where what we grew up
and some of these brands are going to drop out. I think there's going to be like 5 like when it's all said and done.
I can believe that.
We'll see.
But yeah, YouTube, they have a channel like YouTube Movies. I've subscribed to that, and they throw out free with ads on a lot of movies, and it seems like as if that's only for a certain amount of time they'll do that. But then it's like if you just search a movie, there's
Killer
like
Clowns from Outer Space is up now.
You can like watch movies where you can buy or rent them through YouTube, and I think I may have done that once in the past, but with the free ones, I'll end up putting those in my watch later list. And there's been, in the more recent few weeks, more attention to those. And since I've watched one or two, then you start getting more suggestions. And I've watched at least like it feels like half a dozen movies. And there's it feels like when I'm watching them, like some of them are like things I've already watched, and then some of them are new. Okay. So the ones I've already watched are almost just it's kind of like
rehashing.
Yeah. And then other ones that were new.
I always hope
experience.
Like, at this time in my life, like if I'm putting on something I've seen before, I hope I catch on something like I haven't noticed, or like I said, like if it's in the background, I'll pick up on a theme a little better. Yeah. And then just sometimes like I actually go out of my way to pay attention to little details. Forgive me if I've mentioned this before with you or specifically on the podcast. I don't think I've talked about it here, but like in the last time I watched Pulp Fiction, or the last couple times, because I've noticed it, because then I've like watched it with like Ryan or something. I point out like really pay attention to Trudy and because when you're even the millionth time you see it, you're really paying attention to what's going on with the Uma Thurman and the stuff.
Overdose.
But like if you just focus in on Trudy in the background on the couch, like she's stoned and into the couch, and then just like it's like slowly, like she just like slowly comes to this realization, like what's going on. Like it's just cool to watch her, and then like he has like the blinking lights
Yeah.
in the chandelier kind of thing going on. So yeah, it's just funny like to pay attention to the background sometimes. Of like it's like I've seen this a million times, so like we know the meat of this scene. Like what's going on back there?
Yeah, there's like intensity in certain scenes of movies where on only one viewing you're sort of like your brain is focused on like the key stuff.
Sure.
So then in reviewing it, you can discover things that you were blind to because your focus was on like the main thing happening. But then when you're watching, you're like, I already know that's happening, and now you're going like,
Oh yeah,
look at
yeah.
that in the back. Oh, why are they? Man, look at that person standing. That's kind of goofy or whatever. Yeah, so the range of the movies too are they're all over the place, and I've been as a sort of a fertilizer for recording and doing new music in this new studio setup. I've been sampling from film and like videos, just like movies, not music, and
Like phrases or
scores mostly.
Okay,
So,
okay.
but it could be anything. But I'm actually like trying to avoid words, or dialogue.
Okay.
So I'm seeking
So quite
out.
the opposite of what I. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm seeking like basically like scores and things, and not popular music being used in a film, but more of like the stuff that you don't even think of as being the music. It's just like something that's like supporting scene transitions and segues, and it can be whole, like what do they call like a montage, something like older films use a montage. There might be a music piece they're using, and that music piece can be a
Even Rocky
unique or
had a
specific
montage.
that was written for that film. So it's like
Yeah.
it only exists in that.
For some
that
reason, I was
place.
just really thinking like, when you had some of the movies the last time, or well, you had some Clint Eastwood movies, but the Ennio Morricone
Yeah.
stuff, yeah.
Yeah, like that kind of music, you get instrumentation that's really special and real unique and moody, and it's very it really depends on the actual, there's the nuances of like keys and things, versus like a pop song where it's like, oh, they're injecting this pop song in this movie, and you already have like this, built-in appreciation for that song, and now you're putting it into this situation and whatever. But like with scores, especially like certain eras too, so then it's like I'm honing in on like intuition as to what stuff would be potentially I could find a fair amount in it, and it's like, well, modern stuff seems to be out of the mix. I don't really want to mess around with modern stuff. 90s, 80s definitely, 70s definitely, 60s definitely. Behind that, it's like few and far things I'm watching or earlier than that, but those things are going to be more of a narrower spectrum of like likelihood. But I feel like the 60s through the 80s was like this sort of nice
A lot of meat on the
peak
bone.
where there's a
could see
lot
that.
you could get wild variations in instrumentations and takes and genres and stuff.
And maybe you've already been down this rabbit hole, so you can tell me one way or the other. But off the top of my head, I'd be like, there's a certain genre movie that's like very 80s, maybe even earlier 80s, late 70s, where it's like a comedy and like they have that ongoing song throughout the movie.
Oh
You
yeah,
know, I know. I'm trying to think of a shining example, but like they'll do like some kind of saxophone score that just
Yeah.
pops up continuously. It's like, oh, here we go with that song again.
Yeah, I totally know that. But I can't think of an example.
For some reason,
of it.
Mr. Mom comes to mind, but I haven't seen that in a few years now. And I'm like, I don't want to say that and like somebody be like, no, that's not that's not in that movie. But like, I feel like that would be an example of one of those movies that has like that saxophone, like reoccurring, like,
If you heard that, you'd be like, that's that movie.
yeah.
Home Alone, man. The do 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 do.
Well, there's that. Yeah, the John Williams score, obviously.
You hear that, and it's like there are different points in the movie where that sort of sound is laced behind the scene,
Well-
and if you heard that, you'd be like, that's Home Alone.
Well, yeah. Well, also, I was thinking like there are examples of like that song changing, like, and even doing a different tone on it for different and different inflections in the movie.
Yeah, like at the end.
And
where,
now
like-
it's a little somber because we're like in the middle where it's like something sad just like.
and now they've come home, so now it's got this sort of like happy,
Yeah,
do like Barney or something, and it's like that sounds, so what I've been enjoying doing is having movies on in the background and just letting my ears, like, not focusing on it every single time like I'm watching the film. Some cases, yeah, but in other cases, I'm trying to figure out how to hook up some mixer or something, and or I'm working on, because of the holidays, I was like working on gifts and things, so it's in the background, so it's kind of like puts that special sort of, like, you're only using part of your senses to, like, pay attention to, hey, that last part I kind of want to hear looped, or there's something about that was had the right elements to it, and then I would record it, or I record it into this Eurorack module that I use, where it's sort of just like a sampler, and you can manipulate speed and playback direction and layers and trimming it, and just the way you manipulate it, you can really end up creating like really interesting stuff out of these. You take like a string section and, like, you reverse it, slow it down,
Sure.
and then chop up where you're pulling what part of that section, and all of a sudden you put a bunch of reverb on it, and it just becomes this like moody wash of something that you're like, well, I couldn't have just made that just playing with my keyboards by myself. So I'm like sampling and then manipulating these things and making stuff that's like, familiar with where it came from to some degree, but then becomes more like dreamlike because I'm using all this reverb on it. That's been real fun for me lately. And so that's kind of been what's driving me to watch more films than I've been watching.
Sure.
In the more recent, because I've just been busy.
Getting sure. Catalog and stuff.
Yeah. So I made a list, and the way I made this list was I just went to my YouTube. I went to the watch later list. I went to my liked list. So between those two lists, the liked list shows the ones that, struck me enough where I went and clicked the like button. So I kind of like cataloged it.
Yeah.
And then the watch later list gives me an awareness of things that I had queued up and may have already watched, or things I still haven't watched. So I got a list here on my phone of all these movies. Some of them I have watched, some of them I haven't. And I didn't organize it at all. So it's kind of stupid, but I don't know. I'll just jump around.
I don't know. Sometimes how are you gonna organize something like that?
Yeah, I could have.
I guess you could have done genres, and
I put it together like
matter.
right before I came here
It's all
too.
good.
So yeah. I see at the top of the list, and it's an old one, and I thought, oh, this will ring a bell talking with Kevin because of certain connections. But let me get a little sip here.
Sure. I'm already intrigued.
So, all right. So this one was suggested, and I was like, oh, this looks old. So maybe I'll find some sort of cool old texture out of that. Like a real symphony. Not like something scored with like plugins and software. A 1968 film. It's called Yours, Mine, Ours.
With Lucille Ball
Yes.
and Henry Fonda.
Yes.
I'm very aware of it.
So you've watched this movie before?
To be fair, I don't know that I've actually seen it beginning to end. Maggie's seen it, may own it, doesn't matter. It's one of those, at this point, would be streaming anyway. But she's definitely seen it. She likes the remake from the 2000s with Dennis Quaid.
Oh, there's a remake.
Mm-hmm.
Same title.
Yeah, Dennis Quaid.
Who's the woman then?
Renee Russo, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
Oh yeah.
I think there's a couple of those movies around that time. Anywho, so very aware of the Lucille Ball, Henry Fonda vehicle.
Not a movie I would ever think I would want to go on my way to watch. But based off of my hunting for textures, sounds, and things, I'm like, hey, I gave it a shot, and I'm like, I'm not trying to actually sit here and watch it, but I kind of got pulled into it, and I would break away from time to time. But basically, the premise of the story is like Lucille Ball's got
six kids, or
kids.
I forget. I forget the numbers.
Fonda's got 10 kids. He's like a military guy.
Yeah, he's the military guy, right?
He becomes like a widow.
Yeah, he's like got the admiral thing or whatever when they get married.
He's got all these kids. She's got these kids. They come together. It's a little love story, and it's like a really extreme version of the
and that's like
Brady Bunch.
And that's the era of Lucy where she's got that the second show. Yeah, and she's the post Desi show.
Yeah, she looks older in this. So 68.
Yeah.
So I'm like, dang, it's like thinking this of her being like the the love interest of a story, and it's like she looks aged, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like it's just crazy just thinking about all these freaking kids. You're just going like, dang, like, and there was humor in the film that kind of touched on certain things, and it was like I ended up enjoying it.
Yeah, and then you get two classic actors that are at least going to make like something out of it.
Yeah, very not very believable, but like at the same time,
Oh shit! Well, yeah.
like it just
Those
like
movies are. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's nothing.
like how can
it's a
that,
nothing movie?
How can that many kids exist under your care and you not be like borderline?
I just had a
needing to be institutionalized. It's just crazy.
I guess like there was a genre of those movies.
Like half the kids hate them.
Yeah,
because they can't. They're like you. There's not enough attention that one parent can give.
No, yeah, we're not breaking ground on that. Like whenever you hear like that many kids, you're like, it's kind of child abuse.
Yeah, I know. It's like unless you're a doctor and you're just paying other people to like raise the kids, and that's
but even that's still
there.
there's still something to it.
Not as awesome as it could be, and so it's just like that's where I say it's not believable because I'm like, oh, I know people can have tons of kids. But it's just like the way the movie
not the way they
them.
had it, right?
Yeah,
they had a very normal, structured family.
Yeah.
It was like, whatever. I'm going to pivot a second, take this on a tangent, but it keeps in line of Henry Fonda and old films, although this film's a little younger than that one. You ever seen On Golden Pond with him and Katharine Hepburn, where they're like,
no,
like it's like his last movie. Like he get, I think they get Oscars for it, and then he dies.
Like, is this like a 90s or 80s?
It's early 80s.
Early 80s, no. On a Golden Pond?
On Golden Pond. It's one of the movies. So it's a movie my mom liked, and like, I can definitely like remember like the first time, like, oh, I don't want to see this stupid movie. But then like, it is a movie like I actually like. It's one of those things like I made Maggie watch it. Like I was like, no, actually, like let's watch this. So it's funny. So to me, like I know they're like in so many of these classic movies, and like they done other things, and I've even seen them now in other movies. But to me, both Katharine Hepburn and Henry Fonda are like, oh, you mean On Golden Ponds, Henry Fonda? You mean On Golden Ponds, Katharine Hepburn? You know, just like kind of a joke.
Like that's like their
like,
thing.
That's what I think of. Yeah.
So it's like that reminds me of a film just in the way you've described it. And you mentioned your mom. It's like there's a lot of like movies are at a point. I'm at a point in my life where there are movies that I've ignored or seem like I could see why I've ignored it for so long because it looked like something my mom or my dad would have watched, you know, like an old person's thing or something. And like now I'm at a stage where I'm just like no holds bar, like anything could be a good film. And it's like a love story.
We don't have some of our prejudice.
Yeah, that's a good way. Yeah, where like now I'm just going like I don't have
baggage with this
like I could see why I would have ignored it for so long, but now I'm like I just have more an open mind to watching something that would be like like a love story.
Well, some of it too is life experience. So I'll give you an example. I don't know what your experience with this movie is, but holiday season wrapping up here. I never liked It's a Wonderful Life as a kid, and I can attest that Maggie had the same feelings. Like. And only a couple years ago, we actually sat down and watched it. Like, this is really good. Like, you really are rooting for George Bailey. And like, I really hate Potter. And like, I really understand this movie. And it's like, I really understand this movie now. And it's like, but as a kid, it was just this boring old movie.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're putting on this boring old thing.
Yeah.
But now it's like, nah, man, this is really good. Like, I get it. And I actually had the conversation with my brother-in-law the other day, and he did the same thing. Like, yeah, I didn't like that until recently. I was like, yeah, I guess you just need some seasoning. You need a little bit of life. Like you have to be at a certain point, like just to even understand all the things.
I don't even know the story of it all the way through, but I feel like I've been around it being played more than a dozen times.
Sure.
And the memories of it from my youth, it was Christmas Eve at my grandmother's house where there'd be the most amount of congregation of the family on that particular part of the holiday, and that movie was always on like television, and it was at my grandmother's house where there wasn't like if it was
probably on a Turner station colorized, and people were very mad.
Well, no, it was like she had like antennas, so it seemed like there'd only be like 3 or 4 channels available, and it just seemed like the option. It was always an option through one of these like typical TV channels, like it was just a tradition that movie would be played on Christmas Eve on one of these
like
channels.
NBC or somebody would.
And so it was always like on the background where it seemed like nobody was actually watching it. It was just on a television playing like somewhere in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd like only catch bits and pieces of it. And so it became just like, part of the tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, like I never really felt like interested in it, but also never was like turned off by it. But then as it just seemed like I knew the movie when it would be referenced, but at the same time I'm like I never watched it from beginning to end.
Building and right.
It's just like I just saw these different scenes and they were memorable to me.
Yeah, honestly, I think until me and Maggie a couple years ago sat down and watched it from beginning to end, I thought the same thing. Like I feel like I've seen all of this movie, but not all at once from beginning to end.
What's the premise? Is it almost like a Christmas Carol where he like can see like the life without him or something?
Well, yeah, so he does see life without him. So basically the beginning of the movie is his whole backstory. Like you see him from a kid because they're catching the angel up. So there's this angel who hasn't gotten his wings yet, and he's kind of like a bumbling klutz of an angel, and they're going to assign him this assignment for George Bailey. That's Jimmy Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
And then so basically, Jimmy Stewart's at his wit's end. He always had hopes and dreams. At one point, like the guy Potter kind of like spells it out. He's like, all your friends and your brother and everything went on to do great things like that you always dreamed of, and you're the smartest one of the lot, and yet you get stuck here. But he says something to that effect. And but basically, yeah, he always dreamed big, but he always gets stuck in this. He stays in this small town for whatever reason, and like he ends up marrying the one girl and everything. So obviously there's that. Basically, he ends up taking over the savings and loan, like his dad's savings, and he's basically the only thing like keeping the little guy from Potter just having the whole run of the place. Like Potter's just evil capitalism basically, and he doesn't give a shit about anybody. But like George Bailey's like this good guy and like actually looking out for the town and the people, and so basically he has this bumbling kind of idiot uncle who misplaces the money, and now Potter like kind of has control, and like they could go to jail, like, and George Bailey's going to end up he's going to take the rap for everything, but he's kind of at his end, and so he's actually going to commit suicide. But that's when the angel shows up and is like, well, let me show you what life would be like if you weren't around, and just how shitty like the town is. Like it's Potter.
Doesn't sound very wonderful for him.
Yeah, it's called Potterville and everything. Well, he realized at the end of all this, he wants to live again. He realizes it is a wonderful life. Like even like through all the bullshit and all the hard stuff, like I do want to live, and I do all the things like I love.
What an extreme theme for a beloved Christmas movie. Is like I want like suicide Christmas movie.
Well, and then
that is a popular thing.
To flip it around, a spoiler alert: the whole town ends up just chipping in all. Like they give him like anybody that ever like he ever touched comes in and gives him money, and like so it's like we're gonna take care of you. This is covered. Like George, we got George's back.
Like I can visualize this ending where everyone's all like together and they're all just like coming together in some way and celebrating. All of a sudden he's so appreciative and just stoked about it.
Every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wing. That's right. And then I always think of the Rocko's Modern Life version of that. It's like every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings. Your teacher's full of snot, kid.
Rocko's Modern Life, classic.
Yeah,
aged just fine.
Yeah,
still works.
Yeah, there's a lot of good messages in there.
It's still plausible. It's still cream.
Sorry, I took you off on a tangent.
Man. It's all good. It's all good. So next on the list, Dirty Work, 1998. Little Norm Macdonald, right? I watched that. It was already like halfway.
I'm just gonna nod. I don't even have really much to add to that yet.
Yeah, it was like halfway through. I had already like half watched it in the same context, but not looking to sample. I just let it play.
Pouring out for Norm.
Yeah,
exactly. There's gonna be nothing in there. It's got the do. It's got the very.
It still makes me laugh.
Pointed this out.
Still makes me laugh.
This isn't like a original thought of me, but what was it about like 90s comedies where like they had to put like the hip music of that time, and it's like it really ages that
Yeah.
that part of the movie where it's like, well, I know this is 1997. I know when this movie was made.
So as an example of one of the ones like I wasn't sampling it, it's for those reasons where you're just going like, well, I would just be sampling Third Eye Blind then. So I'm just I'm not doing that. But it's like, I don't know. Yeah,
the only thing you'd get out of that would be like clips to like drop in like, hello, real police.
People made more money overall probably with that. You know what I mean? Like the movies using the copyrighted music and the people who've made this, invested in this, like, major label recording, and just like more scratch for everybody versus like getting this like composer to write,
Sure.
individual.
Well, so, some of the rights to certain songs do get costly.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And
that's why like certain things will be in a movie, but it won't be on the soundtrack. You're like, that's the biggest song in your movie. It's not on the soundtrack. It's like, well, do you know what it would cost to put that on the soundtrack?
A random example. So when I was a kid, I had the Lion King soundtrack on cassette tape, and in the movie they do I have a lovely bunch of coconuts.
Yeah.
And that's not on the soundtrack at all. I remember being like, I want to hear that. And maybe I'm screwing this all up, but I felt like there was like a song that was in the movie, but it wasn't on the soundtrack. And you're just going like, where else would it be? And it just didn't make sense. Big Lebowski did that too.
Sure.
Yeah. There were songs on there that like I had the soundtrack, but those songs weren't on the soundtrack.
Any of those movies will do that. And even some of the legendary soundtracks, like if you go back and like, it's like, well, wait, there is like songs in the movie that aren't on here.
Yeah. So I understand reasons for all that, but yeah, the 90s had a lot of pop music and that shit. Yeah, making scratch. So next, Waiting for Guffman, 1997, and watching that. I think it was in our last recording of us talking about My Dinner with Andre, and then I think you mentioned the correlation with Waiting for Guffman.
Yeah, he has the figures.
I forgot that, and then as I'm watching it, and then that scene happened, you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's right, I forgot about that. But that movie, it's like, it's one of those movies where
it's a great movie.
I just watch every time. It always works, and there's
that's
so
my
much
favorite
funny
one
stuff
of
in
those, like the Best in Show, Mighty Wind. Like I feel like those
Guffman's the top.
Yeah, I feel like they progressively like the return on investment was getting a little less. Like I still really like Mighty Wind, but I don't like it as much.
Or would you say Spinal Tap?
Spinal Tap's a different. I consider that. I know it's sort of in the same genre and it's got a lot of the same people in it, but I almost consider it a different thing a little bit. I know it's sort of a mockumentary. I don't know. Spinal Tap is legitimately like one of my favorite movies.
That's like on a tier where it's like it's by itself.
The level of there's so many levels to Spinal Tap. But anywho,
watching a Christopher Guest film, but like Spinal Tap for sure, but like Waiting for Guffman, it's like he almost like I almost feel like I forgot how often you can laugh in that at that film. Like there's so many just subtle, like my humor really aligns with that, or my sense of humor really aligns with the subtleness of the humor and like the
I wonder if they'll ever release any of the like other stuff, because they filmed like hours. It's all improv. It's all those people just improving.
Isn't like
there's more Odenkirk and Cross. Like Odenkirk's on the screen. He doesn't do anything.
I know. You just see him waiting in line.
Yeah, he's there. He did something. I want to see Odenkirk. Cross is off. It's like, I've been coming out to this spot for the last.
So yeah, that movie's just chock full of like just things.
And you could sample those. That'd be cool to sample some of the songs if you can. If it lends itself to it. Like I'm just thinking like they're
stools.
They're corny. Musical music's already corny, and then they're like low rent B version of it. But I actually like, in a weird way, like I actually do like.
The songs are
the songs are
well. There's a
as
scene,
the one guy says, it's kind of catchy and annoying, sort of way, which I guess is a good thing.
Yeah, like they actually point that out, that like the songs are written where it's like they get stuck in your head, but they're almost kind of like not like it's kind of like you like it, but it's almost kind of like you can see why it'd be annoying to have that song stuck in your head, like a song about stools.
Yeah.
And then there's just so many layers of just like so many layers to the film of like the way that it's funny, between like the lyric content of the songs that they made up for the film that they're trying to learn. It just like
I just had a epiphany of like the layers of like whether they intended this or not, like, but just the there's a lot in that movie of like trying to attach an importance to something that's like it's not that, you're not that important, this isn't that important, like so like the town like being like stool, you know,
Yeah.
we're really big on stools. Like, where are you? And you have to wonder, like, were you guys really the stool like stool capital? And then like, just like how the mayor is like how important he's like, and if this goes down, it's like if Blaine goes, like, you tell me what's next, you know, like
and then it's so important there.
And the one lady is like all about like, now I just know what it's like to be one of the Kennedys, you know, like,
Yeah.
because she was like part of like the Blaine like township lineage, and it's just like, no, you're not that, like, it's just like, it's all these people, like, and how serious Corky takes everything. It's just like, you guys aren't that important, like, you're putting stakes on things that like it's not that high.
I love how the town's built off of like the error or like the sort of maybe
I guess
cowardice
does that, though.
of like being like, I just give up. I'm just tired of all this trying to find a better place to live, and I'm just gonna tell these people it smells like the ocean. I think we're here. Let's just settle. And just like the funny, like their whole like community is built off of like one person giving up and just settling.
Well, maybe
like,
that's actually the better theme. You hit it a little better. That they're just it's the lies they tell themselves to like make myself feel good about this. Like case in point, Eugene Levy in that movie. I have talent. It's like, what are you doing right now? You're like, by the way, like, again, that gets cut. Like, when he's at the end, like, he leaves his family and goes to Florida to entertain those old folks. Like, what are you doing here? Like,
yeah. he's thinking he's just reached the mecca of his like success, where he's like doing like what he wants to do, and showing him singing at a nursing home or whatever. And it's like, oh man, like the delusions of these characters is
weirdly the one who might
level.
have the the most proper ambition is Parker Posey.
Yeah, the whole Dairy Queen vibe, like her father, like
he got out of jail, which is good,
for destroying some property or something.
And yeah, she's like, I've been thinking of like some different things we can do with ice cream.
Is there like a scene where she's like grilling and there's
like a random chicken,
like it's like one chicken wing or something? It's like a lot of effort for that. All right, yeah. So that
I love waiting for nothing.
Classic. All right, so here's one I'm kind of excited to talk about. I had not seen this film before, or even recognized it. 1986.
Okay.
Best of Times.
Kurt Russell and so I have not.
Kurt Russell and
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams.
I remember that being on Comedy Central, and like I've definitely seen. It's been on TV, and I've seen bits and pieces. I've not seen that start to finish.
So I was like, it just didn't look interesting, but I like let it go.
Yeah, I don't like the look of that movie, and I love Kurt Russell, and for that matter, Robin Williams. It depends. Like, there's Robin Williams. I don't need to see that movie.
That movie has a Robin Williams character in that. It's hard to peg it. Like, it's almost, it feels like when you watch a film, there's something that like as if like you feel like you can feel it out, right? You know, in this film, it was hard to feel out Robin Williams' character in terms of like his like character arc. Like it was almost like things started to get weird where it almost just seemed like you weren't going to see him actually make changes that made things better. You're actually going to see him fail at what he thought was going to do that. And that like the movie really kind of like shows this sort of like honesty of like being hopeful. And then a lot of times movies will like make that work out. And it's this nice story where like the movie shows you this sort of like
kind of, it's a little bit more real
where it's like you get hopeful, like it's going to change everything, and then it's like, no, it's not. And it's like it shows like the sort of like realism of like it's not going to work out the way you thought it was, and your grandiose vision of like everything being corrected by this vision you have it isn't going to work out. However, it still made it end in a way where it felt like, you know, it was like a good feeling, you know, but it was like kind of a gloomy, overcast.
Maybe that's why I never gave it the full chance, because you just get that vibe, and you're just it's
an overcast day.
And I can tell you, I would have been younger. Like I would have been in a situation where I haven't, since I've been living with Maggie, which has been more than a decade now. I haven't had cable, so whenever I was in an access to having Comedy Central and that movie being on, so I was much younger. Yeah, the younger me wouldn't want to see like some wait, no. I guess like I'm sure I can point to movies I liked as a teenager. Like, this is a downer, like this one. But like for some reason, Probably something more about that, yeah, where you're like seeing somebody like it's more real. Like
Yeah.
probably the more downers like I liked were like some movie like Taxi Driver or something, something like that. Or, like,
It's a lot more darker of a film.
it's
there.
a lot more darker of a movie, but like you're almost in a different world with
Yeah.
that. Like in Taxi Driver, like you're not in that world. Like people like in Best of Times, right? Like that's
Yeah.
more of a real life movie. Not to say that there aren't people like in Taxi Driver, you know what I mean? But we're not dealing with those people,
I would recommend watching Best of Times. I would call that a diamond in the rough for
No, it might
humor,
be like a
for humor.
Wonderful Life. Like I need to see it with the older eyes now.
Like I almost thought of like my friends that like sports, and I was just thinking it's like
And that has like the theme where they were like high school football, right?
Right.
Yeah.
There's humor.
I can
there.
actually picture scenes and stuff in it now. Yeah.
There's scenes where it shows their like these guys just being like having a hard time distancing themselves from their passion for football.
Kind of the Al Bundy's like a cartoon joke version of it, but like how he always is loving or the Uncle Rico, like they're just holding on to their high school football days.
And so that kind of humor is in there, where the ridiculousness of these guys' attachment, to the past. In a way, it's like sort of like a sleeper in terms of like you wouldn't think it would be as funny as it is, but there's so many scenes where it's just ridiculous what they're going through, and that kind of humor by Robin Williams is, I would probably put in the category of some of my best examples. Like I think there's a lot of good humor in that type of Robin Williams delivery, where it's not such a ridiculousness of
the best Robin Williams is when he's subtle.
Yeah, and that film's got the subtle humor in that. With him.
Like earlier, like I want to clarify, like because I think
World's Greatest Dad.
Because I feel like I gave like a glowing endorsement of Kurt Russell. I was like, and there's like some Robin Williams I can take or leave. Like I like Robin Williams overall. I really stamp the positive in Robin Williams. And there's some performances in movies I'm like, yeah, I love that movie, like with Robin Williams. But there's certain Robin Williams like performances in movies where I'm like, and I'm not big on his stand-up.
It's like Mork. And
yeah,
maybe.
I'm not big on his stand-up. I'm not big on like Mork. It's like because there's a certain Robin Williams energy. It's like there's too much Robin Williams going on right now.
It's like neo slapstick or something.
Yeah, like when he's like, especially like, I know everyone like found that one stand-up really like entertaining. Like he did like it's like 20 years old now. But yeah, I just remember him being really sweaty, and it's just like, and again, it's just like it's just too much of him. It's just like, go away, Robin.
His body temperature is probably a little high, a little like worked up when there's his peak
but I love
in the
him
80s.
Yeah, World's Greatest Dad. Yeah, when he's like in a subtle role, or I know it's cliche because it's the one where he wins the Oscar, like, or when he's the doctor in Good Will Hunting, it's like, yeah, this is a good role for you. Like you're good at this. Like, and he's good in like some more subtle.
What was the one who was like a doctor for sick kids?
Patch Adams.
Patch Adams.
What's the one I was thinking of? World According to Garp, he's very grounded.
That's kind of
a downer movie.
I don't know if that don't even sound familiar, but kind of does.
Oh, you never saw World According to Garp?
Oh, The World According to Garp?
The World According to Garp. It's an early 80s movie.
No, I've never even heard of it.
It's got him, John Lithgow play. This is very progressive of its time. John Lithgow plays I guess he would be transitioning.
I understand.
Yeah, he's like, but he's dresses as a woman, like identifies as a woman.
Wow, I mean, Lithgow had some like diverse roles in the day.
Actually, you want to talk about one of the best? He's like really good at.
Like think of him as being like a strangler in a Blowout with Travolta.
Oh, so recently had some. I watched Blowout recently,
and then him being like the goofy dad in Henderson's. You should watch Blowout. Yeah, it's a great one. I love the recording theme in that movie.
Yeah, and just he's enough. So I feel like I'm gonna like have takes on this. Like I don't know what any of like the response on any of these because I know like I've said some things where I'm like, yeah, and again, I have to qualify. Like, I don't like hate like Stanley Kubrick, but I know the last time it's like, but some of those movies get a little boring. Brian De Palma, like overall, like he falls in again. I'll check the positives and like he's so influential. And, like some of the scenes, like right in that movie in Blowout, like some of the scene stuff he does is really awesome. But there's something like overall, like I wish like. I don't know. I really wish like I don't even know how to describe this. Like he's one of these directors. Like wish you had a co-director like to finish off, like polish off some of the stuff. Like, you almost made a perfect movie here.
Brian De Palma.
Yeah, the guy who made Blowout. He also, Scarface is probably his most famous
Oh,
movie.
okay.
Oh, he has a lot of famous movies. I shouldn't say that.
To me, Blowout was like something I saw on like on cable
That
or
one's
satellite.
not one of the, like, I don't think that movie was the hit.
I was just thought it was like a weird.
Well, it's a downer movie, so it's not the hit they were
popular.
probably hope. Exactly. Like, they had De Palma's like made some big movies, and obviously Travolta was a star, but yeah, I don't think that movie hit. And then I think that was around the time Travolta star started.
Dark. It was such a bummer ending.
Yeah,
That's
bummer.
a super.
First of all, the whole
ending.
movie is kind of a bummer and just like dark tones. Like, yeah, and his like love interest in Nancy Allen, like what's she up to?
Gosh,
it's all sleazy. Yeah,
the whole theme of him Travolta being like this recording engineer, though, that was like
that was awesome.
Struck a chord with me, and that's what made me like it so much.
Yeah,
but it was like. It's almost kind of hard, not as like hard to watch, say, like Requiem for a Dream, but like you watch it and you just know how it's going to unfold, and you're just like, oh boy, like I don't know, like, oh yeah, that's right, this happens. And you're like, oh damn, and you're like, good luck, It's like I know it's not going to turn out too well for.
No, like oh no, and then it's like sad because like at the end, basically. All that is to get the scream.
Like
he gets the scream for his low rent.
He's
like
all
slasher.
He's all sickened by it and stuff, and just.
No, I have to say, like I take back the for this particular movie. I take back that co-director thing. Like I think he actually landed the plane in this movie.
Yeah.
Because I love that. I love that ending. I love the fact that the movie starts on the other movie, and like he does that beautiful and. Tarantino does it perfectly a million times over with the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where you get to make you essentially get to make those other movies in the movie, like obviously not the whole movie, but like we get to see like this other movie, and so Brian De Palma like is making a slasher film basically in this movie.
Yeah, that's a classic. I had that on DVD. I'm glad that's in my collection. I have Red Green 1997, so I've been watching. I haven't been sampling it, but like I've been watching episodes of Red Green,
the Canadian
Red Green show. Yeah,
uh-huh.
I just like, man, there's something about this that the humor in it's like so. You mentioned like Married with Children, and there's just something about that sort of like schlocky kind of like like married man kind of old man humor, or like it's just so full of all that stuff where it's like it's weird how it's from the late 90s but yet it still feels like it resonates that same, like it fits that humor has a pretty, I wouldn't call it timeless, but like it just feels like that was made in the 90s but it still feels like it can work today if you're hankering for that, that vibe or whatever, where it's just like ridiculous, goofy stuff and like the kind of humor where it's like just like half making fun of being like married or having what the wife or what women, it's like very like
the stubborn wisdom of the married man.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like it just kind of strikes on these like kind of like cliche tropes of what feels like what's familiar.
Cliches and tropes are. Cliches are cliches for a reason.
So yeah, like an example of something that every time that they do this, because they do segments that they repeat segments, certain ways of doing certain sketches. One of them would be like where the one guy has to get the other guy to say a word, and so he's given like you see the word, and he has to get the other guy. There's three parties. It's the nerdy guy. He shows the word in the beginning, and then the old guy's got to get one of these other extra, these guys are kind of like peripheral characters or whatever, like to say this word, and what they say wrong after all the efforts of him trying to get him to say the right word, like
that's
it's always
where the comedy is.
Just like super corny. So yeah, I put that on the list of just being like watching a lot.
Sure.
Okay, here's a newer film I watched, and I never heard of it, and I watched it, and I was like, it was a good one, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
The Sisters Brothers, 2018.
That's I've not watched it. John C. Reilly. Yeah. That's who I was looking for.
And Joaquin Phoenix.
Okay.
And also
it's a Western, right?
And Spider-Man.
Tobey Maguire.
Yeah. So
isn't that funny? Because there's now been a number of Spider-Man, but I knew which one you meant.
Yeah. There has been other ones.
There's like, I know you and I are out of touch. Like, there's like, I think that's like. They make a lot of Spider-Man movies.
I believe that. I understand that. And I'm like, it's funny that like, It's funny that you knew what I meant, even though I didn't even realize that. Like, oh yeah, I just there have been other Spider-Man. Yeah. So anyway, I watched that, and it was like a Western movie, right? And like, I watched it, I finished it, I liked it, and then like Randy comes in the room, I'm telling her about it. I'm like, she's not gonna want to watch that, but like I watched it, and I was like, dang, that was something right there. I started off because it's kind of got this humor to it, but it's not over the top. It's not super goofy, but I wouldn't call it subtle either. But John C. Reilly definitely brings John C. Reilly to the film, but it's not like Dr. Steve Brule or whatever, you know. But
he's not dialing up there.
The story's pretty interesting, and I would like, I would recommend it. Like if you're on the tip of just wanting to watch it's weird how it went under the radar, at least for me, where I'm like, 2018, so it was right before.
I can't remember. I know of that movie, but I've not seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like it takes place in like the Gold Rush era, and like so John C. Reilly and Joaquin Phoenix are like bounty hunters or something for like a bad dude, and they're trying to like track down this guy that's got this he's like a science dude, and he's like, I got a chemical that you can pour into the river water, and it makes all the gold glow, like shimmer or something. So like this guy was like they're trying to get to this guy, get rid of him, and then get this formula and get back to this bad dude that they work for. And the story kind of does some twists and stuff, but
sure,
yeah, it was pretty cool. And then the movie ended on a note that was like there was some bummy points, but it ended in a way where it was like not bad.
Going back real quick, not an original thought again, but yeah, it's just so weird that small period of time in American history is generated so much of our content in the Western.
Yeah, there's like talking to you about that one video that I watched, the Jeremiah Johnson, where kind of like Civil War,
that post Civil War,
like 19th century, where things
going out west.
Yeah, like people were. You had the war. You had the Civil War, and then you had like all this just stuff happening with slavery, and then it's like the Gold Rush, expansion. It just like so much content could be derived from that, and I think a lot of people, sink their teeth into it because of the whole fantasy of what all that stuff kind of.
Have you seen
played into?
It's not just one continuous movie. It's a series of vignettes or small shorts. But have you seen The Ballad of Buster Scruggs?
No.
Is that the name? I'm getting that name right? It's a Coen Brothers from a couple years from the 2017-18 era.
Dang, it barely even rings a bell.
And it was on my list for a while, like I hadn't seen it. And then me and Maggie started it, and Maggie didn't. So the reason it popped in my brain, it was a Western at the time.
Holy shit.
Well, I'll finish this thought up anyway. But it was one of those where Maggie didn't want to finish it. Like the first one gets kind of violent. It's a Western. There's like shootouts and stuff. And so she kind of tapped out. But I was like, I continued on. My point being, what made me think of that is with Randy not wanting to like the Western. Yeah, and yeah, there's certain like a movie like that is like, oh, I'm watching that one by myself. That's not a with the wife movie. She's not gonna like the violence. I don't think necessarily likes the Westerns. But anywho, but I really recommend that The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, because there's like 5 or 6 like I said shorts. I liked them all, but there's like 2 of them that like for days, like I even now, like I'll start thinking about like, oh man, damn that happened.
Yeah.
Like it just like the end, like yeah, without giving anything away, just like the end of them, just like, oh man.
I can only imagine. I one of the benefits I see, there's several things that I feel like I'm getting out of this type of project here with this like podcasting stuff, but like the likelihood, like just the fact that this actually recording you saying that, like talking about the movie, like in processing this and whatever, like it's like just the likelihood that I can follow up is so much greater.
And you'll probably,
and it's like now actually like I don't even have to bother you or think to like text you and ask you the title of the movie.
What was that Coen Brothers movie you're talking about?
Because it's been documented. But like it's on another tangent here. It's like knowing that there are films that it's almost just seems like this is going to be best to be watched. Like I'd be by myself or something. You know what I mean? Like you can't really like bring in certain, like it's like the bringing in like a lady on a film that's like, oh, she's gonna be a little bored on this one, you know, she might fall asleep if we wait till the nighttime.
Does enjoy it and we watch it, like there could be like that situation where like, oh, you know, by no control of yours, oh, we got to pause, like,
Yeah.
or you know, we start talking and like I maybe didn't pick up on some of the subtle things that I like to pick up on, like yeah, like you said, especially like a movie like that'll stick with you a few days and you're chewing on like things like yeah, if you don't pick up on some of the things like yeah, you didn't even like realize
yeah. I feel almost like my favorite way to enjoy something oftentimes is solo, right?
Sure.
So you get super focused, right? And it's like almost like I've had like fantasies of like, you know, once I got settled in the new place, getting the TV going, having friends over, watching a movie and stuff, and just being like, you know, I don't want to be like a soup Nazi about it or something, but it's almost like people coming in and being like, all of a sudden you got your buddies with you and you're sitting there riffing and you're talking and you're going like, this is changing how I want to absorb this film because I just want to sit here and watch the film quietly. But then it's like almost like if anyone talks, you don't want to like shit on that.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, you're just going like, you know,
you just have to have the understanding this is going to be a different experience.
Exactly.
Of the movie.
So like it's almost like there are certain films that like, you know, you can only apply it in that way if you feel like, oh, well, I've already gotten my like intense personal experience with it.
Right.
Now I'm going to watch it again with my buds and we can talk and it doesn't matter if we're squashing the audio because we're talking.
Yeah, especially if it's like a movie like if we were to put on like a Pulp Fiction, like we both have a history with it, we can start talking about things.
Yeah, but if it's like the first time you've watched it, I'm going to be that dude where it's like, I'm not going to try to talk too much during the viewing because I just want to experience it in a way where like I'm processing every detail the best that I can, and if someone starts talking to me, it's like it's just a one-way road of just attention. Then you're not paying attention to the movie and you're gonna miss the nuances of some humor or a detail that makes something later on make sense better, you know. It's just like it's almost like you have to like watching movies, there's so many different ways to appreciate a film, and it's like watching it by yourself, watching it with friends who appreciate that, you know, type of experience. And then there's like, you know, what about going to the theater, you know, where you're going into a place where it's a ton of people who are not personally connected, you're watching it at the same time. I haven't been to the theater in years, and it just seems like
I've been a few times, but it's very few.
Post-COVID?
Yeah, I went as recently as around Halloween.
What'd you see? You saw
Smile.
I
like that, yeah.
Yeah, you recommended it to me. It was like, it was kind of like, oh man, like I don't know how I'm gonna.
Again, it's a movie that stuck with me. Like I was chewing on things. Only to like recommend it on New Year's Eve and have my teenage nephew be like, oh no, it's just kind of like generic. He said something like kind of generic. Like I was like, did you like Tommy? I was like, it's kind of psychological, and like, you know, I was like, all right, well, maybe it was to him, it was just very generic.
I have a thing where I'm like, I'm subject to be like experiencing something that could be like low quality, but I'm going to be like, oh, I liked it though. Kinda like I enjoyed watching that because it had struck these things.
You know, I definitely play by the for what it is rule, where it's just like, well, for what this is, you know, like Roadhouse. So like for what this is, it's perfect. You know, but there's some people that will come with a very discerning eye and pick that apart. And it's like, and I get that, by the way. I was like, yeah, you're not wrong either, but for what it is, this is just hitting all the right spots.
Yeah, man.
No, I think too, I've realized, or I'm feeling this way again, maybe it's just like being older. It kind of goes into the like, letting a little silence go. Like sometimes like I don't even formulate my opinion right off the bat. Like I'm like, again, it's like I like to chew on the movie a little bit. Like let me think about it. Like in 2 days, am I still thinking about it? Like, and am I thinking more positively or like, it's kind of silly? Or like no, that actually makes sense that happened. And then so like, I mean, you always get the initial like, you have a positive or a negative, an instant reaction to it. But yeah, I kind of like to like, I don't want to have a full opinion of it. I remember even going back to way back, going into the theaters, which is crazy to think that this is now way back. It's like a decade and a half ago. But when the new Indiana Jones came out with Shia LaBeouf, I remember leaving the theater and like my buddy Mike was like, you know, oh, that was great. He's like, what'd you think? I was like, I don't know. I'm going to think about this. Cause I remember like, I don't have an instant reaction, but I remember like pretty instantly like, but I don't think it's a good reaction. But I was like, but I also didn't want to be. That's the thing about that movie. Is like, that's how I know it's bad. It's like, I didn't want to hate that movie. I went in wanting to like it, even though there was some negative reviews. I'm like, no, I'm going to go in with a fresh, like, I wanted to like it. Even then I was like, no, I'm not even going to like, I'm going to hesitate on my review of that. Like, but my initial thought was negative. And then as like a day or two went by, I was like, nah, that shit was bad. And I've been thinking about it. And here's some of the reasons why, like, so you could think on it. So yeah, I like to do that sometimes. Like, okay, my initial thought was positive or negative. Why was that?
I almost feel like because of the rareness of things that I don't like in terms of like a film, or that like I could almost like that could almost be like a thing that could develop as us like tapping into like what movies do you really not like, and it's almost like you could almost like go on a huge tangent, like almost like trying to like being like it's like a philosophy thing where you're talking about it and you're just trying to explain yourself as to why that movie disturbed you.
Yeah.
Why you're like not feeling it, and you're going like that'd actually be interesting because I feel like it's
funny. I was thinking like, what movies do I have a visceral reaction to? And then I was thinking of like, there's a few historic movies like circumstantially I hold a grudge on them, or here's one. This is a genre of movie I would call it. It's all made by one guy, but the movies of Baz Luhrmann. Hate him, don't like him, and you can sit there and point out and I had to watch Moulin Rouge twice in a film class. Like once we watched it, and then the second time we watched it, and the teacher broke it down. I was like, I get it. I get what you're saying. Like I get what he did there, and like it's a piece of art, and if you like this sort of thing, good on you. I fucking hate this movie. Like
Baz Luhrmann.
So Baz Luhrmann.
Sunscreen.
Baz Luhrmann made.
Did he do a song called Sunscreen where he like just like talked about wearing sunscreen?
Oh, I don't know. Is this the same guy? We'll have to look it up. The guy I'm talking about made the movie Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo DiCaprio in the 90s. He made Moulin Rouge. He made that Great Gatsby movie. She really likes that Great Gatsby movie. I'm like, so two thoughts on that. It was in that I realized I was like, I don't like Baz Luhrmann. I continue to not like Baz Luhrmann and his movies. Two, fuck the Great Gatsby. Who am I supposed to be rooting for in this fucking movie?
all those movies you listed
or in that story, like just the story of the Great Gatsby. Like, fuck these rich assholes.
Dude, all those movies are described to be movies I would be like, nah, I don't want to watch that.
Yeah, that's the thing. You wouldn't want to watch it. But for various reasons, whether it be because like my wife or a lady likes them, or I was stuck in a film class where like, oh, he wants to review Moulin Rouge, and and he reviewed it, and I get it. Like, it's like, no, there's like a technical brilliance to what he did. Like, there's, again, like, I get it. Like, if this is for you,
I don't want to watch that.
But I have a visceral reaction. Like, so that's why
you want to watch Moulin Rouge. You're just like,
because like my initial reaction was like, oh, I don't think I would viscerally hate a movie. It's like, but if you were to say like, no, I'm not watching Moulin Rouge. I've had my fill of Moulin Rouge.
It's like that's got a lot of dancing.
It's dancing and singing, and then it's dancing and singing, and they took like contemporary songs and like
the worst.
So like they're singing like at one point they're singing like T-Rex, and at one point they're singing Nirvana. Like they're singing Smells Like Teen Spirit, and it's just like fuck. But it takes place in like old timey France. Like that.
What would
that
Kurt
style.
say, man? What would Kurt say about that?
Although who gives a shit? Like
that's how I feel. I'm like watching. I'm just going like, oh man, Kurt.
That's one of those.
Kurt
like,
wouldn't want to be watching this song being done in a song and dance and this big Hollywood film. And you're just going like, I don't know that, but I just like that's he
probably wouldn't. But
the salty '90s grunge vibes. I
guess that kind of goes to like. But his opinion on that doesn't even matter. Like, I just hate this anyway. Like, his opinion doesn't even factor into my opinion of this.
That might be. So that might be like a thread there that comes up where I feel like now
movies we don't like.
Yeah, like when I think of one, I want to like try to collect that for like future discussion.
I got two more really quick because I have them in the head. And you were around for these. These were in theaters, and that's why I hold against.
Oh, dude, I could drop one, and I'm like, I wonder if you're going to say what I'm thinking.
Well, it's because I had to see it in theaters, and like I feel like. And that's why you hold the grudge. Like, oh, I fucking wasted a theater watch on this. Like, fuck this movie. Which one you're thinking?
AI.
It is AI. I fucking hate AI.
AI, man. I was like,
and I even like,
oh shit.
I did not get deep into it, but I even like, it was on TV years later. And like, I was like, maybe I just didn't give it a chance. And like, I was watching a little bit. I'm like, fuck this movie. And I was like, and again, like, it was like, again, it was supposed to be a Kubrick movie, but he died, didn't get to make it. But then, yeah, Spielberg took it up and was just like, no, this isn't good.
I was thinking that
Everyone's
earlier.
got to stop making fucking Pinocchio movies, too.
I was thinking, like, maybe that's one of these films I would bring up for this topic, but I also feel like, too, I wonder if I rewatch that, if it would be any good. But, like...
And look, if you like that movie, I'm sorry, like, no offense. Just for me, I do not like AI. And again, yeah, it's weird because, like, I just saw the Honest Trailers did, like, a joke on, like, there was two or three different Pinocchio movies come out this year. And I'm like, why do we go back to the Pinocchio well so much?
Were they trying to, like, pump some, like, morals down people's throats or something?
And, like, AI, of course, kind of has the Pinocchio thing. That's why I bring that up. The other one is because I really liked the first one. The first one was a movie I didn't think I'd like, and is an example of a pleasant surprise movie. And I didn't see that in theaters. I saw it on rental, but I was like, oh, and that's The Ring. So then we saw The Ring 2 in theaters. And I can even tell you the specific part in theaters where I'm like, God damn this fucking movie, is when the deer surround the car. And you could just tell, I could just tell, it was like, whoever wrote this movie wrote themselves in a corner and could not get themselves out. And I do not want to see the rest of this piece of shit.
I don't think I've seen Ring 2.
I thought you were in theaters. I thought you were with us for that one. Now I don't know who was in the theaters for that.
I just feel like Ring 1 was something where, like, I have the DVD without the case, and I made a case for it, and like I've watched that maybe 2 or 3 times, but not like super intense or anything, but like it's almost like I'm like, it's all right. It's almost like Cabin Fever.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, and by the way, when I say that, like,
the second one, I'd feel like, oh, it's gonna be weak.
Yeah,
it's gonna be like they're just like capitalizing on like why everyone liked the first.
Yeah,
one.
and I guess like I should have known better, but
yeah, sequels are.
See, I was like pleasantly surprised by, because I think I didn't think I'd like the first Ring, and then like I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, and I think I saw it more than once. I was like, oh, okay, and then the second one came out, and like it was an opportunity to see it in theaters. Like, okay. And I thought you were there for it. Now I don't know who.
Maybe I can almost visualize.
We saw a lot of movies in the early 2000s in the Westminster Theater.
What about Head of State? Remember Head of State? Yeah. I feel like that was one we like half snuck in on, or like bought the tickets and went to a different movie, and then like gave up and went to back to Head of State or something. Or...
Well, we might be thinking the same. So I know which one you're thinking of. Head of State with Chris Rock.
Yeah.
There's another movie. So I can't think of the title of this movie. So maybe you can help me. And maybe this is what you're thinking of. Because yeah, I feel like we saw part of the movie and then came back and actually saw the movie, but we had a spoiler alert, knew it was going to happen. But it had Orlando Jordan, the guy, not Orlando Jordan, that's a different person. Orlando Jones had the guy who was in the 7-Up commercials, and he was in things in the early 2000s. And I just remember like a movie with him in it. And like, I could, for the life of me, like I can remember of the movie and our experience going to the theater. I can't for the life of me tell you what the name of that movie is.
Dang, I don't know.
But I had that thought recently, and I wonder if like, that's what you're thinking of, or what you did just reminded me of it.
Well, I feel like Head of State, like walking in, there's like, you know,
Orlando
like
Jones is the guy in. Sorry.
Well, who is Orlando?
He's the guy in Office Space who's like, I'm selling magazines. I was on crack.
Oh yeah.
And like it was a movie like starring him, because then he was also big in these 7-Up commercials back in the day, because he was the Make 7-Up Yours guy.
Yeah.
So then he had a movie, and I guess this movie did not do well, and he was not the star of many more movies after this. Like, you'd see him in things, but he was not the main guy. But he was like the main guy of this movie I'm talking about. Him and like one other guy. Like, it was like a buddy cop almost movie.
I would have to go through my ticket stubs. I still have all my ticket stubs.
I'm sure I could just get my phone and look him up and then be like, oh, it's this movie from 2000 or 2001. But I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to keep it. Eventually, I'll break down in the next couple of days. But now that we've talked about it, it's going to be in my brain. Yeah. I'm going to try to pull it. And if I can't, on like Tuesday or Wednesday, I'll just be like, all right, what is it?
Yeah, and
Double Take. It's called Double Take. I think that I'm being serial right now. It's called Double Take.
Double Take.
I could be wrong.
I feel like I can visualize that on a ticket stub from Hoyt's.
Yeah. That theater's like going through some management changes. Yeah. It was a Hoyt's at one point.
Hoyt's. I remember getting Hoyt's gift certificates at Christmas time when I was a kid. All right, so this is one I watched like over a year ago. Dude, this list is way longer than what I've gotten through, and we've already gotten over the hour point. It's crazy. So I don't know.
We can do one, like, yeah. If you just want to do like one or two more, and then
you know. So here, maybe I should just take a minute and just quickly go over which ones I've actually watched and which ones are to be watched.
Okay.
Yeah, these are all actually to be watched. I haven't watched any of these, so maybe I should maybe save this list for or whatever. I did see this movie though, The Promotion, 2008.
Yeah.
John C. Reilly.
John C. Reilly and Sean William Scott.
Sean William Scott. Right?
I love The Promotion.
Yeah, so I watched The Promotion.
Richard Wellner.
And it has like this sort of like humdrum sort of humor to it, where it almost feels like if you like John C. Reilly.
It's not a laugh out loud movie, but it's a good movie.
Yeah,
it's just a solid movie.
Yeah, and I feel like it takes Sean William Scott out of the Stifler role. He's he's a great example of another one. It's like, I actually really like him when he's in the right role, but like there's a certain version of him where he's like, yeah, he's amped up. Yeah, like you said, the Stifler version is like, tone it down a little bit. Yeah.
It's like, I actually like you, just tone it down a little bit.
It's like if you go into watching the Promotion, you almost like feel like, oh, it's this guy, and then you have this like not prejudice, but this like idea of him, and then you're waiting for that like change in the film of him. And like, he just plays this different character in that movie where you're like, you're feeling for these different characters.
Yeah, and you know what else I like about them? This is why I consider this just a solid movie. You know what I like about it? At the end of the day, like, there's no rooting. Like, at the end of it, it's like, I actually see it from both points of view. Like, I don't dislike either one. Like, neither one of them is the bad guy here.
Right, yeah, like the way they kind of show the confrontation between two people, yet you don't necessarily feel like there's one side that is obviously, like, you can just cast them into, like, oh, I don't like them.
Right.
You like both characters all the way through the movie, even though there's like this contention there where one of them is probably, like you said, like that's the main character. He's the good guy.
Right.
The other guy's like the trickster, and but at the same time, you're like, I kind of like feel bad for the trickster.
And again, it's been a long time, but like my memory is like, yeah, he doesn't do anything like, he's not awful.
Yeah, he's just a regular dude.
You can see it through his point of view.
Like he's almost like the bad guy, but like he like fumbles or something as being the bad guy as well, and he's just kind of just a regular dude. So everything after that.
Awesome. You like hey, if you like another Sean William Scott, I got a good recommendation for you. The Goon. It's a sports movie, but he's a hockey goon. Yeah, it's got Jay Baruchel in it.
I don't know.
Pretty good.
I don't know if I've watched it or just seen a suggestion enough.
It's been like on streaming and shit. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm opportunistic for suggestions. Especially coming from someone that I've watched a lot of movies with and talked a lot with about movies. The rest of these movies I have are all things I haven't seen, so maybe I should just really wait until I watch them. Let's save them.
I'll wrap it up on a movie idea for you. This is my Christmas movie idea. Came up with this last year. Like I said, pitched it to my brother the idea, so it's still kind of like I was like, I still like it. Still got a freshness to it. So it's called The 26th. Although I was realizing, maybe you'd still do it on the 25th, but I'll pitch you. So the movie starts out. Santa just gets back to the North Pole from a successful Christmas. He's delivered the toys, and I imagine they're gonna celebrate. And they're gonna do kind of like a winning the NBA final champagne shower at the North Pole.
Mm-hmm.
Woo! And they're all celebrating. They got the champagne goggles on. All of a sudden, one of the elves comes. Santa, we got a problem. We just crunched the numbers. There was a section of the naughty list that got significant gifts and they shouldn't have. Oh, God darn it. And so Santa's like, then Santa's got to get like a special team. And then they get so Santa's got like a black suit and then they got to do like a recon mission, him and like a select group of these elves, the black ops. So they got to go back in and retrieve these presents from the kids that had no business getting them. And it goes well. Gets to the last one, and then it becomes this kid's like kind of like really super mischievous, and he's gonna like
gives him a challenge.
He's gonna give him a challenge. This is gonna be like a reverse Home Alone, where like the kid.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, this reminds me of like a Home Alone kind of thing.
Yeah, the kid's like a bad guy, like against Santa Claus.
Slick though.
Trying to get and then it plays on the themes of like all the things it comes with a where this is going, like holiday thing, but we're playing on it. We're flipping it a little bit. So the 26th, that's Santa's got to now is up against this kid to get the presents back.
So it's after the kids have gotten, the gifts. So they got the gifts already.
So that's why I said like, I keep calling it the 26th. And then like I realized actually yesterday, and again today. Now thinking like, well, today's the 26th as we record this.
So you'd be seeing
And it's
it
like, really, he should be doing this on the 25th, like the afternoon of, like when you're like out the family get-togethers.
Yeah.
And he should be doing this when you're distracted trying to get the presents back.
Yeah, so almost like by calling it the 26th, it's like, but really the discovery and the action
Would be pretty instantaneous. He's got to
Yeah.
get back out there.
Yeah.
So, all right. So still tweaking that and working on that part of it.
Well, I mean,
although he might have to go in the night, though. He still has to go under cover of the night, maybe.
and the fact that like you could like maybe
So it is the 26th.
You could stroke the idea too of like, even though it's all the idea of Santa Claus, the fantasy of that, but you can almost like bring it to like, oh, it's realistic that it's going to take him several days or something, you know, where it's almost like it's like half of the week after, you know, it's almost like it's 25th, 26th. It's like 4 days of just devotion to get in there because
yeah,
like
it's not easy.
Time zones and weird shit like that.
And you're like, well, why can he do it on Christmas Eve? It's like, well, that day is kind of set for him. Like,
yeah,
it's been all prepped. Like, this is a different mission.
Showing him like doing like the way like sports teams celebrate when they win something. And it's like a big deal, and like he's all done. And it's almost like he's doing his things to
yeah, that's
unwind.
part of like I really enjoy like just that that idea of it. Like, it's gotta like they gotta be happy. Like, yeah, pop the champagne. Like, I want to see like the full on like, yeah, they're putting plastic on things in the North Pole. Like, hey, we don't have to start working just yet. Like, we're celebrating. This is our night off.
He's like hitting like a pipe and smoking some weed or something. Just being like, I'm so glad I got all those responsible things done. It's all behind me now. Like, and then he finds it out and just like, what a buzzkill. It's like, I gotta go back out and like recover.
It's
like,
just
like you could probably have a few scenes of like humor where he just lets it go in certain unique cases or something where like he goes there and he tries and he gives up in certain
like they weren't really that naughty.
It's like, oh, I see that child has come to their senses, and it's like gives up on them. It's like just too hard in some cases. In other cases he actually sees them be like,
shit.
Oh, they've redeemed themselves.
This is where, so I totally forgot about this B storyline to the movie until just now, but it is in my notebook. I did write this down, but I have a B storyline for Mrs. Claus. So while this is going on, while he's out, I don't know how you write it in specifically, but like basically,
She's got an OnlyFans account or something.
No. Mrs. Claus is gonna be like the hero, like a hero in this movie. Not that I guess that makes her non-hero if she had it. Anyway, because if it's all on the up and up, and Mr. Claus is cool with it, like
you gotta dirty it up a little bit. You gotta make Miss Claus like a little bit of like.
No, my thing was in the last few years, like it's a necessary evil. They've had to have like a corporate, like some kind of Amazon come in and like the North Pole like has like a deal with them. So like there's this like
distribution connection.
Yeah, I haven't fully figured out the like how we play that off, but basically. My point is it's like an Amazon like company's now kind of up there, and it's like they don't even taken control of anything, but they want to, but like they just need the North Pole, but they kind of want to get rid of the clauses kind of. So while Santa's gone, like this corporate like shyster guy is going to try to like use this as the opportunity he needs to start making the waves. Mrs. Claus is going to shut that shit down.
So she's the one that's like really behind the scenes, saving the day
while Santa's out
putzing around, collecting a couple.
Well, I think I'm gonna make it where it's like it's not correcting even his mistake. Like whatever happened was like it's got to be like some elf where it's just like we'll deal with him when we get back. Like and that may be like a separate thing, and maybe he redeems himself somehow in the whole ordeal. I don't know. I haven't fully flushed it out and written a script or anything, but I do have this idea for the 26.
Thinking about like this idea of the character arc or whatever, where like when you watch movies and your expectation on like, or like films that have broken the sort of like the long set rules of certain things, like like when they're like a screenwriter's code thing where like bad people couldn't get away with stuff. Like old times.
The old code.
Yeah, like someone shot and killed somebody. Like that person couldn't get away with it. Yeah,
they'll get their comeuppance. You will see them get their comeuppance.
So like the way that movies, over the decades and progression from those early eras of film, that like movies that broke the rules, but like still at this point in time, this sort of feeling of like when you watch a movie that you have like certain expectations of like, you know, if it ends on a bad note, or you know what I mean, like it has to be done very well, or else you hate the movie or something. You know, like if the bad guys win but it didn't feel right, you're like, I didn't like that, you know. But sometimes it's like the bad guys win, it leaves it on a note where you're going like, that was genius, you know.
Or sometimes it leaves on a note where not necessarily the people who won should have won, but like, I'll give you a perfect example of a movie where it's just like, every time I get to I love Jackie Brown. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. But every time you get to the end, you're like, I want Max Cherry to go get in the car and go after Jackie Brown. Like, he should be going with Jackie.
Spoiler alert. No,
spoiler alert. But then I
almost feel like he didn't though. Like,
he doesn't. No, he doesn't.
I think in my mind, like,
he takes a phone call and it goes to credits.
Yeah.
Honestly, though, I do come back to like, he probably. Yeah. It's fine. It is. So ultimately, I'm fine the way it is, but there is like there's still a part of you that's like, but I want Max Cherry to go with.
I'm like,
I want him to quit this shit and go off with Jackie Brown.
Every time I've watched that, you get to the ending, and I feel like my gut
but the
forces the ending I want in my head, where I'm going like, nah, he just was holding off till he caught up to her, because he definitely gets back with her. He has to.
No, I do the same thing. You're like, but there's a reality, and especially in the Quentin Tarantino where it's like, that was the last time they see each other, and I'm fine with it because like there is a reality to it. Like,
you think it's going to happen the whole movie, that they're going to align, you know? And so as he
kind of says it, like, you know, she's like, "Are you still intimidated by me?" He's like, "A little bit."
Well, that's what makes that movie does it well. It does it well, where it ends on a note where it didn't wrap it up in a nice little package like you'd expect.
But even with them not getting together, I still really like and respect the relationship of these two people coming together, and like they like each other, and then they help. Well, I guess she does help him out because she gives him a little bit of money. Like, he gets a cut at the end of it, but like he didn't have to do any of that. He just did it because he liked her.
I had a moment the other day when I was leaving a big store in Hanover that I hate going to. I won't name the name of the store, but like I was leaving the store and I was like, I had a box,
especially around these time of year, and people extra crazy.
So I went to this store, which I won't name. I went to this store to acquire some goods that I knew I could get there, to fit my budget and cover a lot of bases. Okay. So I'm in there, and I think I'm just going to get a basket, because that's all I'm going to get is enough to fit in a basket, a little carry basket. I don't want to get a freaking cart, not in this hellhole. So I bypassed the cart option, and as I enter the store, I'm like, there's no baskets for me to get. Like, I don't see, why would there just be random stacks of baskets beyond the entrance point? So I'm like, I don't have a basket.
Where the carts are, yeah.
I'm like, I'll just carry it by hand, whatever. I get to a point where I'm like, I get two things in my hand. I'm like, I can't do this. So then I'm like, I go and I walk around, and I see there's a lot of employees on the floor stocking. So there's a cart that had an empty cardboard box, and I'm just like, this is my cardboard box now. And I just took a cardboard box off of an employee's cart and like folded the flaps down in it, and that became like my basket. But it was like a long and not like a conveniently shaped box. So I'm like carrying this like weird big box, and I put all my stuff in it, and it gets pretty heavy. And anyway, I spent a lot of time in this store, too much time, got out. I'm walking in the parking lot, and I'm just going like, I've completely forgotten where I parked. Like, where I parked, and I did that thing, you look around, you're going, okay, yeah, I know where I'm at. But when I came out, I'm like, it all kind of looks the same. And I'm like, was I over in that one, or didn't I pass one of the trolley spots? And you just start coming up with like details that you're just going like, I don't fucking remember. Now I'm being a little too self-conscious in this moment, but I'm kind of walking around feeling like an idiot, because I'm like looking around, looking lost. I'm like, I'm a stereotype right now, like this is a joke right now, and I'm just like hating the moment. And I was thinking I was going to have to pull out my key, my fob, and like hit the panic button or hit something. But I'm like, unless I'm within sight of it, it won't work. And I'm like, also don't want my alarm or the panic to be going off. And I eventually found it. I forget why I brought this up. I don't know if that had something.
Well, probably because Jackie Brown.
Yeah, because in the movie in Jackie Brown, the scene, I think the reason I was bringing it up because there was probably like a second or two where I stroked out and was just thinking about that movie. where like she's like teasing him about finding the car.
Yeah.
And the way that movie portrays that sort of tension of like getting like forgetting where you parked as a man, like, and you're just like walking around just being like and then the woman.
Well, and of course, and that would be in the situation of any relationship of a woman antagonizing, like in that particular moment, where like, and they have baggage from earlier.
Yeah, and then in the movie Jackie Brown, the way that scene sort of settles, you know, the way that scene goes, you know, you're just going like, holy shit, this movie just changed.
Yeah.
You're like, oh man. And it's so for me, it's almost like I think of that movie, that scene from that movie as like humor when I'm lost in the parking lot to cope with my embarrassment.
Is it this side of
Where like he was so pissed off, he like shot and killed another person because like she was teasing him because he couldn't find the vehicle in time. Not at all, but just in enough time.
Yeah.
He's like, there it is. You know, it's like not where I thought I parked. And I'm like walking over. I'm just
you had a shooter?
It's crazy.
All right,
man. Well, I think I've achieved getting less than 2 hours, but it went over the 1 hour mark. But that's totally fine. But yeah, I think we got something.
Cool.